Right, what we'll do, since it's a completely open day, as I said, we can go into lunchtime and continue our discussion. We'll have 20 minutes, 25 minutes starter, and if we haven't finished, then we can continue during or after lunch on the South Knoll shooter. The reason I've put this down here is I know that Brian is particularly interested in this, Brian Kelshaw. And it was we had a presentation from Sherry Feaster, it must have been about 6-7 years ago, and she firmly believes she's a blood spatter expert, she has advised the Dallas police for many years apparently, and she firmly believed that there was a shooter on the South Knoll just based on what one can see, the blood spatter and the Zapruder film. The other point to make is that many people believe that the damage to the windshield of the limousine, Kennedy's limousine, it was definitely a bullet that passed right through the windscreen. It was even found, it was mentioned by Dallas police officers, even though they tried to cover it up. And I believe that when the automobile went back to Ford, they actually replaced the windscreen and tried to show that the bullet had actually gone the other way. So they obviously were very concerned that there would be evidence of a shot that came through the front of the windscreen. And that seems to tie up the angle of the car, and if you take the angle at which the bullet had gone through the windscreen, that there was a shooter on the South Knoll. So I don't know a lot about it, but I know Brian does, and I'll open it to you lot.
Yeah, the thing that convinced me was Sherry Feaster's book, which led me to look into it. And then I found another link to a very, very comprehensive PDF document by Anthony Dufour. And if you ask him, he sends it you. And he has stood on the South Knoll and taken photographs of cars coming at you. And it's patently obvious, as Sherry Feaster says, when he's going down the hill, the Zapruder film gives you a distorted perspective, because he's not looking that way, he's looking that way, and Kennedy's head is looking that way. So Kennedy was facing straight at the South Knoll. I've seen something more interesting recently. The sun was behind whoever was on the South Knoll, and it was 12:30, so it would be high in the sky. Anybody looking over there?
It would be all that high because it was in late November.
Okay, in which case it would still...
It wouldn't be like it is in England, but it would be...
All right, then the lower it is, the better, because it's going to be if you're looking in that direction, you're going to be looking into direct sunlight. The other thing that drew me to it was the 80 or so witnesses that described the first shot as a firecracker. And there's somebody done it online. I tried to follow the link, but the link was to some obscure archive and I couldn't get it to work. But you can get free acoustic downloads of what a bullet going through a windshield sounds like. Also, the mortician, one of the men who from Gawler's funeral home who reconstructed Kennedy's head said that his neck was peppered with shards of glass. All the way around there. His neck was peppered with shards of glass.
Never heard that one.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that one, that's good.
Was it Custer who said a deposition during the ARB?
Yes.
Said
Yes.
that the X-ray that he had taken was which showed fragmentation on the third vertebrae. Was destroyed or was never shown as part of the evidence to the world.
Yeah, that's right. But to me, there are certain things that just, because I'm looking at this from like a virtual standing still, some things just leap out at you. And it's the fact that everybody said firecracker. Who's throwing firecrackers? Which it is. If it's a distinctive sound, it's a distinctive sound for a reason. And then you see the video that the bloke's done of Kennedy quite obviously trying to cough something up because it's just gone in there. He grabs at his tie and he does that. He literally does that.
elbows.
No, no, it's not. He does that, and he literally coughs. Watch it again in slow mo. Watch it again. Just in his head.
I've got a copy of that.
Yeah,
No,
and he
that's all right.
coughs like that, and you can see him as if he's grabbing his tie. But if you just had a throat full of glass and a throat full of bullet and a throat full of blood, that's
Can
what
I
he
put
was
something
doing.
in there?
Go on.
I mean, no doubt about the first shot hitting him in the throat. Not the slightest doubt. What's seldom realised is that the second shot came fairly soon after that first shot. So you have JFK doing this, shot from behind,
Yeah.
so he hit this.
Yes.
And I think that may be what is causing the confusion.
Could be. Could be.
Yeah.
But no, and it's the one place that nobody seems to have looked until comparatively recently. The one manhole cover that is the equivalent of the one on the other side that everybody says somebody could have been in, I can't see how somebody could have been in that one because there were people physically standing too close to it for them not to have noticed. But over the far side, and I went over there last year, you are to an extent round the corner from the people on the underpass. And I just recommend people download this document by Anthony Dufour, D-E-F-I-O-R-E. He has literally worked it to death. It's a 300-page PDF.
Can you spell that again? Sorry.
It's D-E-F-I-O-R-E.
Right.
And if you email him and just say I'm interested in your PDF, he sends it you.
When you find it, you just Google his name and find it?
Yeah, it's like capital D, capital F, but you'll find him online with one.
I've got it. I've received it from you actually,
Yeah.
Brian, via Alan
Yeah,
Johnson. So if you like it, I can put it
yeah,
out.
you can put it out to
the whole
everybody,
group.
Please, yeah.
which is
Just put it out.
Cooking with gas.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I'll do that as soon
We've
as I
also
get
got
back.
people like Ralph Yarborough who could smell the gunpowder at street level, couldn't we?
yes, but that
Again,
that ties more in with
The
mitigates
north
against
knoll.
it being on the sixth floor, right, yeah.
it mitigates against being well.
No, it's against that completely. In fact, Posner made a point of saying that the wind was blowing from the north, presumably to get the smoke down to the ground level of Dealey Plaza as quickly as possible. But in fact, I went and looked up the airport weather record. The airport, I guess, is Love Field. The weather records for that day, and they have, amongst the other things, they have the wind direction and the speed, and the documents were actually reproduced.
Is it westerly?
It was westerly. The wind was blowing straight from the west, straight up through the underpass, across the.
Do you know why I
across the-
said that? Marie Muchmore's
Because
skills.
several other people
Ah.
actually said, you know, for example, Mrs. Kennedy said that as they turned the corner into Dealey Plaza,
Shut up.
there was a breeze, a strong breeze
Yeah.
coming,
Yeah.
and I don't remember the details of her hat, but
Oh, I know
but
that.
she, the breeze was straight into her face.
Yeah. But the next
And you
film
look at
shows.
the flags on the limousine, go straight back along
Yeah.
the street. The limousine was going 11 miles an hour or thereabouts,
Yeah.
and they were blowing back a lot stronger than they were just being blown by the motion of the car. So everything says the wind was from the west, except Posner. In fact, he even when I looked up his footnotes, I checked the details of what the people who claimed said about the wind. They actually didn't say that at all.
No.
They only had one genuine quote about wind blowing from the north, and that was from somebody who was several blocks away in whatever the North South Street is, going past the book depository. Which
Houston
Houston Street, beyond the depository. And he was up there, so a couple blocks away. So, you know, he was telling the truth. He was saying about.
Oh, yeah, and then
But unless you research what he's got all these footnotes. Say, my God, the guy really did research this topic first. Then you look up the footnotes, and they all say something different from what he says they said.
And of course he was safe in
Royal
doing it.
Commission, isn't it?
Because Posner was safe in doing it because it was pre-internet days, so unless you could get
Yeah.
hold of the testimony hearings and so on.
Well, not only that,
Yeah.
isn't he supposed to have written down things that people have turned around and said, I've never even met the man?
While he
He's
was
quoted people without even having spoken to
I mean, just to revert to the rifle as we were talking before, I noticed with Posner one incredibly jaw-droppingly duplicitous remark that he made in getting Wesley Buell Frazier and Linnie Mae Randall's testimony conflated so that he could pass off the impression that the rifle that they saw him carrying
looked like a
was under his armpit but almost touched the floor. Now she saw him carrying it first, and Wesley Buell Frazier's testimony was that it was cupped under his armpit. But he conflated both pieces of testimony to make out that it was under the armpit and nearly touching the floor, which it wasn't because he was carrying it in a crooked arm at first. But this is how he does it, isn't it?
Sorry, so a couple of factoids about the car, which I found out recently. I don't know if anybody else knows that, but they didn't own the car when it was built. It was actually loaned to the Secret Service from memory, something like for $500 a year. And when it was configured, the cruising speed, 10 to 14 miles, was actually built within the electronics of how, like cruise control for cars. So,
You mean the limousine?
yeah, yeah.
Kennedy.
I mean, it had a standard cruising speed
Yeah.
for motorcades. You
It
just press,
did, yeah.
press motorcade button on the
Yep.
dashboard and that's some speed.
But also that it
Unless
was,
you're Bill Greer, in which case you do it with
Yeah.
your brake on.
Well, I actually I'd always wondered about that because
yeah.
I'm not that bad a driver, but even at slow speeds, the follow-up car is really close. I've never tried it with anyone brave enough to put a car in front of me, but I can imagine even at low speeds that is very hard to do. It only takes, if the car in front hit the brake, the other car would hit, in normal street sense. I always wondered why they could be so close
The
almost.
car in front of them, I think, was the sheriff and the chief.
Yeah,
or something.
it's further ahead.
And they were several lengths ahead.
But he did have numerous people said he had trouble turning the corner from Houston onto Elm and almost hit the curb.
Almost hit the curve, yeah.
Because wasn't that supposedly captured, there's talk of there being 2 copies of the Zapruder film, whether it's true or not, but supposedly the other excellent copy showed the car almost hitting the concrete
Yeah.
abutment, didn't it?
Yeah.
It isn't another excellent copy, apparently. It's a film that just shows things that are not in the Zapruder.
Yeah, Rich De La Rosa.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those first things, as we all say, about that big question mark. Why would there be the missing area of where the car swings in and then suddenly the Zapruder doesn't do anything and he starts? Come on, if you're shooting, you don't stop shooting.
No, I think
You
it was
don't
helps
have to.
film,
In the
wasn't
days
it?
of film, you did, because you might run out of film before you got to it. If you just press the button to start shooting, you may run out of the film.
Okay,
First
fine.
one, or you may,
I don't think you
with the
do.
kind of camera he had, you have to flip
Super right.
physically stop the camera, take out the film, turn it upside down, put it back in, and then you.
The other side of the film was already used.
So it was already used.
So-
So he didn't have any, well, he had some film left, but he didn't know how much he
The
had.
official excuse.
Which is what is an argument against the Zapruder film being altered. That was
No,
in the
he
last
stopped the film, he
DP.
stopped filming for a few seconds.
Or was it in the
car
book?
was coming down.
Because he started filming too early, because so the excuse goes. There was so much motorcade before the car, because there was the sheriff's car.
I don't think it was an excuse, I'm sure he testified to this.
No, he said he never stopped filming.
Well,
But you can.
He never stopped filming
Past that.
once he started again.
Yeah, but the excuse that we are expected to believe as to why you see the police outriders, then nothing, then the car virtually halfway down the street. He started too soon, thought about the fact that, well, this is film I'm using up, stopped, and then started
It's
again.
not implausible.
It's reasonable,
It's-
isn't it?
If I were doing the photography, I would have done exactly the
Okay.
same thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's
What I
we're
wanted
here.
was a picture of the president and Mrs. Kennedy.
You think you don't want the mayor
Going
of
down the
Dallas?
road, I don't
you
want
know?
lots of pictures of policemen on motorcycles. And I don't wanna waste film. I don't wanna be in the situation where Justice Kennedy comes alongside
Yeah,
and
runs out.
the film runs out. So I think even if he didn't remember doing it, that'd be absolutely plausible.
Gail Nix's book is well worth a read, and she asks the very pertinent question, why did Abraham Zapruder receive so much money? Why was Abraham Zapruder's film treated differently to everybody else's in Dallas? Everybody else's was, that's evidence, we need it.
And
We're
how,
having it.
and how were Time Life able to buy that film?
Yeah,
You know,
and
rather than
why
go
did
to government
the
hospitals?
Americans then pay 16 millions to the already impoverished Zapruders to buy it back again?
Chris Scully said something at Canterbury the year before last. You know,
Yeah,
that
and
time.
he's written a detailed article which is in the
Yeah.
Goes from Elm Street.
And he said something about
They
that.
made was it 3 copies plus the original,
Yeah.
were made the same night or something very close in time.
But also,
They were essentially the first generation high quality copies.
but also the company, the lawyer was involved with drawing up the contract, so that even now, whenever it's shown, the Zapruder family still get a cut
Yeah,
of it.
yeah.
You know, so I think he was very astute. He might have been poor, but he was.
He wasn't completely published, he owned a
No,
clothing
you
company.
Yeah, but
It wasn't a big
but
successful company.
nobody else could have, they could have just said, well, we're sorry, Mr. Zapruder, but it's evidence in the murder of the president.
Yeah.
Stand aside.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, in America, you don't realize that the primacy of private property in legal proceedings, and that is why they can't just seize it and make it public property.
But they did.
They did with other films.
They did.
Other,
No, they didn't. When did you first see the Zapruder film? Many years later. You didn't see it during the time of the Warren Commission. It was never shown on TV.
No, but other films were,
and still photographs were, weren't they?
yeah.
They were-
After they were only shown in black and white, and then they were only shown afterwards in color as individual frames in light.
No, but I'm referring to the seizing of the photographs.
Other films were seized by the police, including.
The privacy of personal
Willis
possession didn't seem to
signs,
operate.
for example, Willis still owned them, still owned the copyright, and if somebody in a magazine or book wanted to publish the picture, they had to pay for the rights to do that.
They didn't pay Beverly Oliver for her film, did they?
Well, some people seem to have had their film confiscated, and it was denied that it was taken, or they said we never heard of it or something.
But these tended to be the sort of bogus servicemen anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, if a Secret Service man comes up to you or a man shows a Secret Service,
Yeah, but
let me
these-
have your film.
These two turned up 3 days later. And stood
Yeah.
up-
Well,
stood
the
waiting.
Zapruder, they knew that.
They didn't say, can we buy that, please?
So they knew about Zapruder the same day, and they supervised the development and printing of copies of his film. I guess it was overnight or something.
It was on the same day.
And to maintain the chain of evidence, somebody accompanied it at all times. Chris Scally went into a lot of detail about this. There were some glitches in the documentation about film numbers or something, film copy numbers. But other than that, all of these 4 copies, the original 3 copies, were the genuine. And I myself personally discount all these claims that and there are funny businesses going on with this Zapruder. Not in the best copies.
Can I comment on it?
Yeah.
Sure.
In the last book I did, if I remember rightly, I did this in that book. There was this claim that several frames were missing. Now they could tell because of the frame numbers. They were missing. However,
Around 206 to 210 or something.
where did they turn up? They
These
turned
other
up in
copies.
the FBI files, and then they were put back.
Well,
However,
they were from this other copy.
why did they want those 4 frames out? It was because in the first place, the FBI reported there were 4 shots fired
this was based on, what you might call ballistic evidence.
All right. And then
The hole in
The-
Kennedy's throat, a hole in Kennedy's head, a hole in Kennedy's back, and a big hole in Dover Conway. Several big holes.
yeah, well,
Plus James, yeah.
let's
Let's take.
continue.
They didn't know about Tang at that point.
They did
Well, they didn't pay any attention to it.
exactly, but they knew.
You see, the film showed the first of these shots.
Kennedy goes.
Undoubtedly, the one that a chip went up and hit Teague,
Could be.
the bystander. And the point was that the one people wanted rid of a fourth shot.
Well, that didn't
And
happen
that's
till,
how they got rid of it.
that didn't happen until the FBI report came out in December. Because once they had 3 cartridges and a rifle and an empty rifle in the repository, I think there was, am I right, there was no other bullet in it, or there was one unfired?
One unfired.
One unfired in the
Good.
In the chamber.
In the chamber.
chamber, because it couldn't have been in the clip, because the clip wasn't in the gun.
Which gun?
Well, Magnus per Carcano, because when you fire a Magnus per Carcano, you put the last bullet in, the clip drops out the bottom. And in fact, it would have been very difficult, because Oswald had 4 bullets and he fired 3, which it wasn't Oswald, but somebody fired 4 bullets or did something to create 3 empty shells and a bullet in the chamber. It's almost impossible to load a clip that isn't full. I think Aller proved this to our satisfaction. If you try to put the clip in, you have to kind of twist it a little bit.
Ian showed that as well. He's got a gun and he tried to show
You
me.
have to have a full clip
Yeah.
to put it in the gun, and when you fire, you put in one shell after another. But if you try to put one in that's missing a bullet,
3 shots were also part of the
that
press
was their scenario.
right away.
3 shots have been fired.
Minutes after 3 shots had been fired at the motorcade. And
Yeah. How many shots were fired at Reagan, and what did the press say in the national report? I can't remember. There were at least something like 10 or 12 shots fired by what's his name?
Hinckley.
John Hinckley, with his .22 pistol or whatever it was. And the press said, 5 shots have been fired at the president. About 10 or 11. Press, first initial impression people get usually is not as many shots as really were fired.
And also, it's such a strange acoustical setup, has been proven several times, that people would, not really be able to tell.
You know,
People are busy doing other things,
Absolutely.
like saying, my God, panic.
Yeah.
if you get into it, you'll be amazed at the different stories that you get about how many bullets. But you see, Blakey, chairman of the Senate investigation, told a friend of mine, and this is straight up, and straight direct to me, that he believed there were 6 shots fired.
He
Now,
probably fairly close.
where did they go? Well, you see, the whole thing was a barrage of shots over a short period of time. One went into the Stemmons freeway sign, which was why it disappeared very quickly. And I tried to trace that one, and I found that it was placed in the basement of the school book depository, from where we don't know anything about it after that point.
Someone picked it up and brought it inside.
Yes. Oh, they took it down.
It was taken down a couple of days
Mm.
after.
Oh, the
Sign.
sign.
It's
Uh,
not that simple.
I know this because when Oliver Stone did his film, he needed it, and he went into it, and I spoke to one of his people there, and he said, well, you'll not find it. He said it went into the school depository from where it disappeared, so he had to get another one made, a replica, for the film that he made. That wasn't the original, that was the replica that he showed you. But yes, also, if you are with me, the first shot was fired, as you quite rightly deduced, Stuart, from the grassy knoll, and it hit Kennedy while, in Zapruder terms, he was behind the Stemmons sign. There's a sign. If you could have seen behind it, you would have seen the actual
You
shot.
can see Kennedy's head.
Now, yes,
As he's disappearing, he suddenly, I think he was looking to the right, and then he suddenly
That's
goes
right.
like this.
that's right. And he was looking
Very
to his
quick,
right.
like shoot 1 or 2 frames.
He was looking to his right.
That's right, 'cause he heard something.
Waving to the people, and he was lined up with the sniper on the knoll. However, the thing is, if you took a picture from the other side of the road, you would see how prominent was this Stemmons side, and it seems to me almost certain that there were several other shots aimed at the president from other locations that went into the Stemmons side and probably into the ground, etc., etc. And I know where the bullet went to that hit the president in his neck. It went through, yeah, came out the shoulder. They tried to say, of course, that it happened the other way around, which is nonsense. If it had happened the other way around, the sniper had to be lying in the middle of the road to get that shot. It didn't, it came the other way, from grassy knoll, through, and went into the road. And isn't it amazing how people with their specialities all contribute to the one big whole, and one sorts out the other. There's a man, I'm stuck for his name now, you probably know, some of you do at any rate, the man is specialised in doing the maps and diagrams of the knoll, and he published them. And in his publications, he showed you where there was a bullet mark in the road. Right? Now, in the work I did with Joachim Marcus, who was a computer wizard, and he contacted me from Germany and said, look, I'd like to do some work on this. I've got a new technique, and I'm going to... The upshot was that he said, I want to do a rerun of the assassination. I want to do a rerun. I want the car to come into Dealey Plaza. I want to go round where we can measure the distances and direction from where the shots came from. This is something absolutely staggering. But he got on with it to the extent that he kept coming back. I had to provide all of the data. I had to provide pictures. He came back to me, this one's not good enough, get me another one. So I went on, and his pile of documents grew and grew. Anyway, it came to the point where he said, I need measurements taken on the knoll. So I got a friend of mine, lives near Dallas to go in with a measure. Take measurements. He got them all. He said, no use. This has got to be absolutely spot on. We need a surveyor. So he actually paid for landmark surveyors in Dallas to go and carry out his instructions of where he wanted the measurements.
These are measurements not available in other records, because there are a lot of surveyor.
Yeah, well, yes.
But not of the.
No, you'll find it in a book you've got called Say Goodbye to America. You'll find a complete account of the work that we did together. It took 4 years, and the first thing I learnt, which I'm sorry to say this, but I heard it off the phone from Joachim, and I think my heart sank. Is because he said, I've got evidence that of the bullet that was fired from the knoll to the president's neck. I thought, oh dear, what have we got here? You know, where are we going? But when I saw it, there was no doubt about it. He had the measurements, he had the direction. He took a line, wait for it, he took a line from one of the autopsy pictures of the bullet wound in the upper back.
Below.
That's right. Below, and he lined it up with the hole in the president's neck and projected it both ways. One way went exactly to where Mary Morman's picture had shown the badgeman. Yes, exactly. The other direction went straight into the road to the mark that Cutler's the man, had marked a bullet, marking the road.
He was
So
a
you've got-
scene investigator on the day.
Yeah. Well, he was around very early on.
He was a police
He took-
investigator.
That's right. You know, they tried to cover a lot of these things up very quickly. But there you are. That's how one thing leads to another. And so we've got it absolutely spot on. Next, there was the vexed question of where the shot came from that nearly blew the president's head off. And I'm going to keep that one until you see the pictures.
Can I jump up on that? Because I'm glad you mentioned Badgeman. There's a book by, and I wish I brought it with me, I can't remember his surname, perhaps somebody can, his Christian name is Tom. He was an analyst, and he used the physics of light to look at all these things, and he just worked on it for years, became obsessional. There's he blows up the picture of Zabruda, for instance. I've looked up. I'm not even sure that it was Zabruda. It looks more like a woman is holding the camera rather than Zabruda.
Well, from behind.
There was
Yeah.
very
Zabruda claims that obviously he was nervous of
Receptionist.
Sorry?
No, Sitzman was the woman. No, then the
Remarkable
Sitzman, yeah.
thing about
He was
the
receptionist.
Zabruda
Yeah.
Into the Shadows,
That's every
it's
shot.
called the book.
Oh, right, yeah.
For every shot where
So
the
Dan did see a
average
few years ago.
amateur cameraman would have jumped. He didn't. Absolutely solid, right through. You get no camera
That's not true. There's
on the shot.
Anyway, sorry, this guy Tom, there's loads and loads of analysis on the badge of Badgeman, and does a drawing of the wings of the badge. Now, as you can appreciate, I spend a lot of my life going into Dallas police records, and I've that badge, I looked through historical details. If that is the case, this was a very old badge, I think from, I've got it somewhere in my notes, somewhere in the 40s. This wasn't a current, we need Ian Briggs in on this one, a current 1963 Dallas police badge. Either, and wish Ian was here, either it was somebody, somebody who'd, and why not, dressed up as a policeman with an old badge, perhaps his father had been in the Dallas police, or it was
Costume shop hire?
Sorry?
Costume shop.
Yeah, absolutely. But that, as I said, I don't think any researchers, because Tom just mentioned it in this book in passing and did that. I don't think at the time he wrote it that it was actually possible, thanks to the internet, that you could then research and look into the history of Dallas police badges. And I think I've tracked it down to about around the late 1940s, and not necessarily a badge. So.
I mean, it could have been all the out in the CIA Fox department.
Absolutely.
Could we, sorry folks, could we just call a break there?
Yeah.
Carry on, have all the thoughts in your head, but we must get to, there's some coffee apparently with lunch, and Jan is concerned that we're not going to enjoy it. So,